for years, and apparently he's in a group that I've been invited to, and I don't know all of the details yet, but apparently there's like a 3D printer designer. There's a bunch of stuff on our team, and I think you're familiar with. Okay, Google, turn it down 30%. I think you're familiar with David Schiermeyer, the sematicist, the bubble guy.
Yeah.
We had him on the show. I interviewed him.
Yeah.
So he hit me up. And he makes those life viewers. Hang on. He makes those somatic life viewers and the bubble somatics, and a bunch of other fun stuff.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
But he started this team of people, and we're just kind of getting started. But I offered to, assist and basically just hit the record button and turn it into a podcast, what it needs to be from the get-go, so we can see where we want to go as a group. But Jason Verbelli, you've heard of him. The Real Verbs on YouTube.
No, I hadn't.
Oh wow, yeah, you gotta get into this guy. You know John Searle?
No, man, you know all the cool cats that I don't know. I know all the cool cats that are doing different things.
There's a Searle engine that was designed, but Jason Verbelli.
Yeah, I know about the Searle engine. Yeah.
Jason Verbelli is John Searle's boy. The guy who helps run his stuff. But Jason Verbelli, he's been doing cavitation videos and just a bunch of awesome science for years. And if you go to the Real Verbs, you might be like, oh, I've seen this. But it's all plasma and sound and all the other stuff that, electric universe, pro-electric universe. But Verbelli himself is really I'd say opinionated, because he's really well learned. So, because he has the
doesn't bother me at all.
Position to be opinionated, which is like not opinionated in a bad way, but opinionated like he'll chime in wherever he needs to point it out in the right direction. He's pro Walter Russell, pro Lee. But yeah, he just kind of, I've been waiting for, apparently John Searle said that he went to the moon or something, which is weird about that whole situation. I haven't looked into that to see if it's just to try to trash him, if it's what kind of propaganda that is.
So, where have you been, like, overall? Like, what's been going on, man? I mean, it sounds like you're still doing the cymatics, and I assume you still do the geometry work. So, been so quiet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of big things coming up here, and like the science and technology is able to build these visions that I've been having. I had a vision of a machine that can worship God greater than we can. Clear as day, probably one of the greatest, most vivid real life dreams that I was in. Well, it was a vision, and I could see it. I was there, It's really strange, but it has a lot to do with Celtic music and going into the roots and remembering histories. And the reason why music exists in the first place is so that we can remember things like ancient culture, like memory lines. But yeah, I saw this machine, dude. It was crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, something that can like I'm like, how can something worship God greater than we can? You still there?
Well, your name came up with Robert on one of the shows here, or maybe one of the unrecorded ones. I don't know. He was hoping to get your I guess mathematical eye on some of his ideas about the structure of the atom. And you know, we mentioned on the Dougherty set, and I think he's watched some of your stuff. I don't remember if he's been on this geometric view or not. On the,
Robert.
Robert. But at any rate, he's definitely looking for the help of somebody to help him define the multidimensional structure of the view of the atom that he
has. Which Robert?
Ashcroft.
Yeah, put me in touch with him because
well, he's in the group here. Just hit the @Robert Ashcroft
cool.
there. You know, introduce
Ashcroft,
yourself there.
Ashcroft, that sounds familiar. What's that? Who's that?
Well, he's definitely a strong, opinionated feller. He's been on this show many times, and he's got an interesting set of ideas for the structure of the atom. But he's going to need help with some of his ideas and turning them into a mathematical framework. And
yeah, is it similar to what I'm working? Is it similar to what I'm working with, or Edo, or what?
I'm not sure. It seems in that direction.
Vortex based. You know, like what?
Yeah,
gotta be vortex based.
Vortex structures. You know, extra dimensional. There's all sorts of. He's got an expanded definition for prime numbers, or he's taken the regular definition and applied it broadband. But I don't know what's possible with software to simulate, and you've done all that kind of work, so I think that it would be good for you guys to get in touch. And then you know, Nick in the group here has been working on a system called Jupiter, and it's like got Python encoding, and he's trying to simulate the NASA data, and we're trying to create an engine that actually is going to simulate the electric nature of the at least the galaxy, if not the universe. And we want to eventually run that through Unreal Engine and, you know, create some kind of ultimate simulator. And then let's see, I myself have been my new book is coming out, and I've been, of course, working assiduously on the MEMS philosophy, and I was supposed to be on Leak Project last week, but then Rex is like in Florida or something, or another country. Yeah, I can't tell. I can't tell based on the videos.
Yeah, I seen he went to Florida, and I'm like, what? Emily was just there. I'm like, yeah. maybe he met up and did an interview with Emily, because
But anyways, but
he's been on her. I just said that because she's been on his show, my girlfriend.
Well, this Thursday, I have the AKJ. I'm doing the Avalon Arthurology and the New Century. I'm taking the AKJ and all the Wilson Black stuff, taking it to a new level and trying to bring people along with me. And although most of my work I've decided is going to go into, aside from the MEMS and the strategy, a lot of, and of course eventually the relativity. I've been vibing with Steve Crothers, and been part of an email chain that's hilarious, watching this Nobel Prize winning goofball say the Earth is flat. Essentially, he said something like the Earth is two-dimensional. It was pretty hilarious. The general relativity this cult is not a science. But
yeah, Crothers is great. He loves is great. He loves me. I mean, ever since we met, we've been in communication.
I think based on my intuition yesterday, aside from my fiction work, the new avenues is going to take EPMC into operations research and logistics, because I've been doing all these papers on data ley lines and data ether, and in a bad way, the market was responding. Of course, the Fibonacci fans are going the wrong direction. They've been pressing down, and so I've been monitoring their pressure and putting out information on it. So yeah, things progressed. Definitely have missed you, man. Especially the balance you can provide on these calls with your right-brained brilliance.
Thank you.
You know, the way you combine the left and the right of the brain, the hemispheres, into this fascinating vision. And in general, just like hearing from you.
Yeah, I miss you too. I just recently turned Skype back on, so that's just the reason I've been absent. I got a new phone.
Well, I added you a few times. You can probably go and find those if you want to search through or use the computer version.
Yeah. I was actually after I had this vision of this machine that can worship God greater than we can, and that's one of the best ways that I can describe it. But it's really just geometry and fire, and it's really weird, but it creates this this greater conduit, sort of like a synapses to a larger, like what you were talking about, a simulation of the galaxy. But this is like a way to tap in, almost like a drum circle, but this is more pure. I guess not more pure, but just like direct, like the most direct chain to communicating with, I guess, the universe, the source, the higher spirits.
Well,
it's not hard to build either.
Have you looked at my MEMS document on the self-consistency of the Big G diagram? Like, have you seen any of my MEMS philosophy work? Okay, that might be an area where we might find some overlay, because I've got all these Fibonacci proofs that the philosophy is self-consistent. In fact, that the MEMS philosophy itself, which was birthed out of the cosmology, is itself a MEMS, which is, I think, not circular reasoning, but self-consistency.
What's it now?
Give me 1 second. I need it to set up this bank deposit. Why don't you explain to the audience briefly, because this is the first time that we've had you on the Pulse. Tell us a little bit about your work, the Dougherty set, because then the audience, if they haven't been over the geometric view, which they should, I'll include a link in the description. Give them some idea of your core work, and I'll mute myself.
All right, how's it going, everyone? I'm Buddy James. I'm an artist that goes by the name of Love is Watching. You might have seen my work, but the greater and larger aspect of what I do is circuitry, circuit theory. I study holes, how they open and close, and what lives within holes. So it's like homotopy theory. What happens when toruses unfold or refold, or how they can be constructed into long million-year or billion-year circuits of light. Not only that, but how the helical symmetry, scale symmetry works on the micro and the macro level of these circuits. I've been doing this for 18 years this year. or 19 years this year, studying the larger, broader aspect of what Birkeland currents are. Mainly Birkeland currents. I didn't know what they were until I saw a presentation by Donald Scott. And then I flew immediately as quick as I could to go meet this guy ASAP.
So it's funny you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned that because I think that you have one of the more core, deep understandings of Bessel functions in the entire community. Do you want to maybe stay a second on that and explain to the audience how a Bessel function works?
It's the best when I describe this using the Dougherty set. It's easiest for me to describe the whole broad aspect of what a Bessel function is using the geometry that I discovered. But backing up for 1 second, when I showed Donald Scott my work, he said, "When did you come up with this?" And I told him 2003, and he said, "You beat me to it." And I said, "It's not about who to it. It's about the information. You know, that as long as the information gets out." So there's plenty to beat Don Scott to it. If anyone here is familiar with there's a vortex. His name is not Bernoulli. I can't remember this vortex. Anyway, I'll remember this vortex. Beltrami. If someone's steering right now, I don't know if the internet's on, but if you look up a Beltrami vortex, you'll see that this guy was onto Birkeland currents way before anybody else was. Well, actually, I guess we'd have to compare when Birkeland came up with it and when Markland came up with, or not Markland, Beltrami came up with Beltrami vortex. But nonetheless, this cylindrical collimated Bessel function that Donald Scott talks about, the counter-rotating dilation of tube within tube within tube. These are all based on harmonics, and the scale that these Birkeland currents are, actually they just came up with new discoveries about Birkeland currents. And the center bulge of the galaxy, the galactic bulge, is composed of hundreds of thousands of, well, they say 1,000 or hundreds of filaments that are just resting, that are just looking directly at the center of the source, as if they're bowing down directly before the source and just sitting there like standing wave filaments. These long extended ropes of electrical connectivity, coherent electrical connectivity. The key word here is coherence, because with the coherence of the geometry as they nest harmonically produces consciousness, coherence, coherent thought, coherent.
Okay.
There's a, yeah. Did you? I thought someone was saying something.
No, I said,
so,
yeah, okay, yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up these vortex structures connecting things, because that actually became part of the data ley line theory. These vortex structures actually existing also on the mathematical. And before I answer the what is a mem, the big G diagram connects the force, the ether, and the data, the numbers, all part of a larger filamentary God. And so what you're describing, I would think, would be the so-called how these things could actually be communicating all as one part of one flow. Because it's one thing to woo it and go, oh, it's all one. It's another thing to actually scientifically define it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of silly because the spaghetti monster is actually starting to make a lot more sense than anything else. Not their philosophy necessarily, but the idea of this spaghetti monster, which, like, when I study these currents, the eddies, the flows, the electrical, and I work with high voltage electricity weekly. So I'm working with circuitry, and what does the circuit want? How much water does it need to stay alive? It's thirsty. It sounds different when it's satisfied, when it's moving fast and rapidly, like a rapid fire blowing with wind blowing at just the right angle and degree. There's the circuits are hungry, the circuits are thirsty. The circuit is the Ouroboros. The circuit is a repetitive, fractal, recursive Bessel function. It's a Bessel function. It's one simple drum beat, but the drum beat extends during a time period which connects the first drum beat with the second drum beat with the third drum beat, and then you get the progression of time. It's a progression crystal. It's what builds. It's how the sun actually builds up a bunch of different filaments. How some get knotted and rest and glorify the center of the holy throne. I mean, the throne. This doesn't need to get biblical or even religious, but that's what it's doing.
Let me ask you a question.
They're describing what creatures are doing.
We haven't spent a lot of time on this channel yet on circuits or signals, which I would like to remedy over the next few episodes. But when you're defining a circuit, are you talking a traditional RLC circuit, or are you speaking in terms of flow and connectivity and circuitousness and the continuity of all things? When you say you're working with these circuits, give the audience an idea. I mean, are you setting up some variacs and arcing like Jacob Gable, or what's your setup?
Okay, first let me describe the circuits that I talk about and that I study, which would be the circuits of the universe and how I get to the point of this circuitry.
Sure.
Because the other stuff's minutia. The other stuff's more just how I get a feel for electricity, what it needs, what it wants. How can I figure out what it's going to do next? How can I figure out the predictive analytics of lightning, what it's doing, how it's communicating with the wolf howling and the aurora borealis? These types of now I have to say this, that I'm an interdisciplinary geometer. So a cartographer, I make maps, and that's my main forte. So when I'm talking about these circuits, I'm talking about living, two-way, breathing, rest, motion, palpitating, variable circuitry of the sun, how the sun builds charge into ropes that are called Birkeland currents and the other ropes. But what I'm doing now, and I'm focusing on is the breakdown of these individual Birkeland currents or filaments into their many different multiple lives that they live, their phase transitions. So looking at a larger Birkeland current that is nested within another Birkeland current that is nested within another one, They can only harmonically integrate into specific widths, lengths, holes, and collimated structures. There's dissonant octaves, or I guess there's dissonant channels that wouldn't be able to turn into a proper Birkeland current circuit. So it might turn into a cloud until charge moves through it and builds a circuit, through building magnetic fields and things like that. But the Birkeland current, when it comes to the Earth, it hits the heliopause. The heliopause is the global Bessel function. It's what all of the charge that comes from the sun that's hitting, and all the solar radiance and everything, the particles and everything, it hits like a glove. The magnetopause catches it, transitions this information into smaller tubes, and it breaks up the Birkeland current into these helicon waves. So it changes from Birkeland currents and astrophysics and into physics. Helicon waves are they create these plasma tubes that surround the Earth like a magnet, like spaghetti, and they come around these big loops that go into space and into the Van Allen belts. They become recursive, cyclical mannerisms and behaviors. And tubes, oxygen is provided because oxygen is created with these helicon waves, which you can hear because the helicon waves are actually they come down, and sometimes they're glowing in glow mode plasma, and that's what we see as the aurora. But we can hear these. They're called chorus. A bunch of different names for these chirping whistlers. They sound just like the creatures on Earth and the atoms. But so these, you want to know the name of what Birkeland currents break down into. Okay, so this builds this resonance inside of the Van Allen belts, which is, I believe, where the memory of the Earth is, inside of the Van Allen belts, where full bodies are produced in the heavens before they're created on Earth, inside of this electromagnetic web that surrounds the Earth. We're first created literally and braided together and sustained constantly through these filaments in the heaven. Our archetype for every single creature is one of these filaments. This dual sexed nature of one filament of these Birkeland currents, it comes down, and as it becomes these helicon waves and creates all these noises and creates these tubes that are resonant with lightning and the spherics of lightning and the harmonies of the wolves organizing these circuits, meandering the rivers on their own through trophic cascades. The whole thing is a trophic cascade. Everything is a trophic cascade. And it's all connected to another, is connected to another, is connected to another. It's what's it called when there's it's not predeterminism, or what is it? Initial conditions. It's all based off of initial conditions. But anyway, so let me just real quick, after that, let me just real quick explain how they break down again, go through another phase transition into creatures. They're pulled up into and out of the atmosphere through something that I call sonotropism, sound pulling creatures into existence out of the ether. And the whole science is called sonobiology, sound, life created out of sound. And the next transition after it becomes a creature, or actually this is probably part of the main transition that builds the inner and outer organelle of the creatures, is something that is called skyrmionics. These tiny little, this guy came up with this theory in the 60s, and this is exactly correct according to the geometry of the Dougherty set and the Bessel functions and everything that I've been studying. This guy's right on, and I'm mapping out how to communicate, and not, I don't really necessarily believe in higher dimensions, but how to communicate on all sorts of different planes using this technology.
You mean
so
like
skyrmionics.
You mean like fractal dimensions?
Yeah, it's these little waves or these little tiny, it's actually how ball lightning is composed, skyrmions. It's these knots, these fibrous knots and loops that can't be untied. They're like cemented together, and that's what I've been sketching. And I'm like, oh, okay. And there's an infinite amount of them, and an infinite amount of arrangements of these knots. They're like Celtic knots that can be tied together and create charge in a variable different types of balls, different color balls, different. I mean, the science of this is infinite, and they're just cracking into it more and more. I don't know if you can look up skyrmions, SKYR or SKYR, skyrmions.
Yeah, I'll put them in the description. I haven't been sharing.
Yeah.
It's just been us on the Skype phone here. So this might be a good place to answer your question now, because you asked what is a MEMS. It's just a membranous interface of material and spiritual. So a MEMS could be anything from a person praise to money to anything that has been created by consciousness to interface between what a person desires or thinks about and the material will bringing into existence, including futurizing. You mentioned that this Beltrami, that he basically discovered the Bessel function before everybody else. And then you have various examples of futurization. Of course, I was talking earlier about these data ley lines and treating data as an ether and treating ether as a gas and plasma. So what I would be interested to know, because I'll link you my little MEMS papers, my directory and stuff. And also that reminds me, the reason I was adding you so much is you have your own research page on the Gateway, and I'd like to get it populated with more than just geometric view videos that I found. I'd like to get more of your work on there, and any of your written work, artwork, everything. I'd like your page to be one of the most beautiful ones, because I know that your work is so beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, for sure.
So I'd like your thoughts on how if let's say I take MEMS into the direction of because the 1.0 was the original concept. 2 is several hypotheses, which included things as various as the scientific method and finance and mysticism. Then I've set aside MEMS 3.0 for everything related to religion as a how did my 15-year-old student put it last night? I think he called it an archetypal MEMS, which was a kind of an interesting concept. I hadn't thought of that. And then, so I'd like to set aside an entire section for operations research, which would include data analytics, and that would bring Nick in, who's been patiently listening on the call. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on how these geometries and these vortices could be connecting data information to the ether, which of course is connected to the force. And then, of course, one of the last sections of the big G diagram is the physics itself, or principles. I give them all their letters, so the P power. So how these can all connect. And then you have consciousness in the center at the Lord and God spot. You have the L and the G. So you have these different ones that seem secular, but they are all connected somehow. Explain to the audience how, because I think you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, and in that way you've been doing the Mimsy philosophy even longer than I have. How are these things really communicating in this view of circuitry that you're espousing here?
I would say instantaneous communication through synapses, directly through the ether. Gut, I would say taste is the first sense that was created, or it's necessary for things to orient themselves. One of the first senses. So gut, taste, the gut itself, these circuits themselves are alive. So I would kind of think of the Earth as like, if the solar system was alive, which I believe it is, and there's like a consciousness, there might be a drive, there might be a intentionality and all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
But like the Earth might be the gut of the solar system.
Well, we definitely know that there's a reactive aspect to the solar system, and it's interesting you mention that, because inside the cell, the golgi formations inside the cell that help to do the digestion, they belong to the earth phase just the same as your spleen and stomach belong to the earth phase for digestion. So you're associating some kind of gustatorial function in the universe, sort of like how parasitism seems to be part of the universe. Then there's taste, or like I say, gustatorial nature to everything. It's a taste of reality. And it's funny you mentioned that, because in Taoist alchemy they actually talk about that. In fact, when you read the Wuju Pian, sometimes you can almost taste lead as you read them talking about the lead and the mercury, which of course are all euphemisms for energy and essence. So
well,
now,
when you're around someone who's either enlightened or dangerous, or there's other things, there's smells. Sometimes people give off a really sweet smell if they're
and we say a person can leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. Like we have sayings that have to do with it. Okay, so now let me give you a live example. So I've been, if you go to the my paper directory and you happen to click on the MIMS 2.1.212, I've been keeping an A, B, C as I connect. So here's what happened: the crypto market became, I was tracking a data ley line that's possibly between it and my personal crypto and company savings. The only way that those things are connected is through my mind. Okay, but I'm seeing data cohesion in the structures, and then I'm tracking all these Fibonacci pressures that are affecting the futures market. So how are these things really connecting, and how are these data ley lines actually exchanging the data information, all of this being under the power of numbers, right? So all the geometry and all of the data information sciences, all this is underneath, because my idea is to model it as a gaseous plasma, but what do we need to actually model this and bring this into a new field of data analytics, certainly a much more esoteric form of operations research than has been yet created? Everything's been so game theory and object-oriented programming, that kind of thing. Because Nick is particularly interested in machine learning, and he would like to take this machine learning and apply it to his work so that we can create a consciousness that is studying the electrical nature of the universe, as well as giving us a visual identification. And I'm interested in how to gamify this and help our spacer movement to where we can actually calculate the electrical circuit around us and capture that charge and use it as a species.
That's it. I think we can use the planets to maybe correlate with the motions of the electrical charges, hopefully somehow, maybe. But that's the long term that's a long-term thing for me. But carry on, buddy. I really like your work anyway, buddy. I've seen some of your stuff. It's just coincidental that these hop vibrations popped up the other night, and they seem to be sort of very closely bound to the Bessel function.
Indeed. Yeah, the hop vibration is directly connected and slides up and down force-free field-aligned currents.
And they can do these nesting on sort of different layers. So I mean, it would be possible that if we're say spiraling around Pleiades, that could be spiraling around, say, is it Arcturus? I can't remember which one. But so a spiral embedded in another spiral, embedded in another spiral, possibly.
Yes.
But it'd be great to identify planet movements as such, really, wouldn't it? It'd be fantastic. But anyway, yeah, carry on though. Carry on. Is there a? I know there is a spiritual dimension to all this as well. But carry on.
Well, my curiosity is, can we go? Because okay,
Hang on.
I postulated in one of the papers.
Can I answer your question real quick?
Yeah,
Just
go
real
ahead
quick.
and answer the question. Don't let me forget about the.
Yeah. So you asked a question, and I honestly think that the link is the Schumann cavity, the Schumann resonance. That's a fact that keeps life in check. It can't be. Nothing in life or nothing can be organized without existing inside the Schumann resonance or Schumann cavity. That's what keeps the checks and bounds in balance on Earth. That's why sometimes people just have to die out of nowhere, because the global electric circuit has to stay in balance. And if there's an upset in the balance, someone's got to die sometimes, or electricity has to strike here, or it has to strike there, because it's maintaining a certain livelihood. So that livelihood is directed to cavity, Schumann resonance.
It sounds a little bit like you're studying what in the Chinese call the killing chi, and with respect to what I call in the EPMC, I call the cosmic rearrangement hypothesis. So there's a need to resettle charge, move it around, rearrange, and on balance on all levels. So on the etheric and the physical.
Well, it has to mimic a river. It's not a live circuit unless it's mimicking the river.
Okay.
So these coaxial circuits have to be identical to a meandering current, which means that it has to break and it has to separate, and it has to recirculate the vortex, like Schauberger. Like if I were to do a book about Schauberger with my illustrations, it would just blow people away. Like I have hundreds of illustrations already about it. So it's just like, do I publish it? Like, what do I do? I mean, it's about what's going to happen in the future. We're going to go into the Dougherty set. That is the future. There's the Theodortian roots, which are nothing more simple and elegant than a regular polyhedron, a triangle, a square, or a pentagram or a pentagon. You nest that inside of itself, and you get the inverse square or the inverse pentagon. You keep nesting it, you get the inverse pentagonal geometry. You keep inversing it, and you scale it out, and you add a space and time to it, to that same Bessel function. If you convert it into circles, then you get the Dougherty set. This is a real science and a real future that we're going to be going into. And it sounds like you're paving a good path here, Ramon. And because what's initially going to happen is we're going to go in and we're going to optically observe it until we can figure out how to actually experience it viscerally, and have a living experience with different places in the universe. We're going to dial into these circuits, you know, like I've been talking about for years. And these circuits are going to take us into places that we don't know what we are, like living beings. The circuits themselves are alive. They are connected to every other living being on the planet. Now, the way that these circuits nest is quaternity. There's quaternion, which nests into octonian, which then nests into sidonians, which then nest into trismegistrophus, like septagonians, and it's infinite. That's just the inverse square way that these filaments unfold.
Because I have a particular bent, let me switch you all back here, because we got going in this. I want to go back to, in my Birkeland polyphase superweb, I postulate that we'll be able to control the charge distribution by using lasers to change basically the entanglement code of a material, and then which a light is just a circuit, it's just a connection, that will be able to change its attitude basically towards sharing or providing its charge to rearrange. And I don't know what stage of the conquering the solar system this would be, folks. It could be like stage 3, 4, 5. I don't know. It won't be in the next 10 years. But now what I'm asking you, can we mimsically bypass the need to evolve as a species to a stage 5, 6 species in order to get to what you're talking about, which would be certainly beyond stage 10? Can we do that to where we can use tunnels of data to influence it directly and actually encourage an interface with the ether and counter space directly, and acquire that energy way before? Like, do we really have to go through a fusion-based society and then the collection of charge? Do we have to do that?
No,
or
no.
Or can we connect to the data directly, or is it going to be one and the same?
Okay, I think it's going to happen a lot faster than any of us could imagine. In a period of something along the lines of 7 years, the entire thing can be, it could probably be assembled immediately with the technology now that I see, that I could direct people towards. But see, I don't want any royalties. I don't want anything. This information is, I don't care how many people try to infringe on the information. It's stronger than we are. So
You're saying the power of numbers, because of course in the Big G, just to remind people of the MIMS work, if they haven't looked in, there actually is no separation between the power of numbers and the force and the ether. They're all one thing. It's just to us humans, it's appearing as separate, and including in all of the 8 laws underneath of the P power, the physics power, they're all one law too. It's just that they appear separate to us. So relativity, vibration, resonance, they all appear separate to us, but in actuality, it's one continuous flow. So what you're saying is that we'll be able to tap into the N power directly, and that will give us instantaneous work in the A power, and we'll just come to understand the F power, the force, even better. And that we'll be able to enact sudden, what will seem almost magical changes in a very short period of time. Is that something you would be asserting? Absolutely,
and I think this could come just naturally inside of all of the humans as the ionosphere comes closer to the Earth. There's going to be a mass confusion, which is the main reason why I think religions. Hang on a second. I think the main reason why religions create music and do mantras is to remember and to stay sane when the world goes insane, because it goes through cycles of collapse. Yeah.
You said what comes closer to the Earth? It got cut out.
The ionosphere. As the ionosphere comes closer to the Earth and the poles change, these transitions can happen, and do happen. This naturally builds impervious individuals or people who think that they're chosen, whether they're chosen or not, maybe big ego people, maybe people that God chose or whatever, and they have light bodies. They literally illuminate, and everybody goes to them for answers because the world forgets everything, and it goes through like like we've talked about on these shows before, a state of amnesia, and everybody forgets their roles, everybody forgets their languages, everybody goes through mass confusion, and then we see a monk sitting there talking coherently in a language that we might not remember, but it's there because he's been doing the mantra for so long that it's embedded inside of him harmonically. Like when you do start to forget stuff and you get Alzheimer's, music is one of the only things that keeps you connected.
That's true.
Mantras connect you to greater truths of larger aspect of, you might even not know why you're doing it. Like nobody knows why we're doing anything, right? Ultimately, I mean, but anyway, these larger religious powers stay in or larger bodies of religion like India, they stay in power and they stay they remember these things. Just imagine everybody roaming around as the magnetic fields change, completely incoherent, because the cohesion in the geometry, like I said again, like I'll repeat again, this geometry is cohesive and coherence is built, structures are allowed to survive. As symmetry is broken, geometry allows particles to exist. It's the break in the symmetry that we are inside of, in light, which might remind us why we're broken or whatever. But
well, we've talked about asymmetry even on here before. The Awen glyphs here in the Ohio River Valley are asymmetric. We were looking at the Bostickian superplasmoids that everybody calls black holes, like the 87, and we see that it's asymmetric. So there's definitely some kind of offbeat, plus the nonlinear nature of things. It appears like our normal Euclidean geometry, but it's always kind of rotated, kind of changed, a little bit different than we expect. And there's this constant rearrangement, as I talked about, of these energies, in order to constantly keep charge sloshing back and forth so that everything can keep folding and creating. But now the heart of the MEMS philosophy had to do with futurization. It had to do with tunneling into something in the future. The classic example being somebody who couldn't wait for powered flight, so they invented the hot air balloon. And okay. So people constantly wanting to bring the future into the now to better ourselves and better the conditions that we live in as people and as a species. Talk a little bit more about how, well, first of all, how these will connect. They clearly have to connect. On the case of the principles, the power is over here and the force is over here, and obviously they're interacting because we're using math from the power of numbers to study both. How are these things? How can we bring them into faster cohesion in our life and in things that we're doing now, whether it's a religious activity or health related or sports? I'm coaching these kids at basketball. How do we utilize this information to improve conditions now, to more rapidly develop the species, as Tesla said, to increase the human energy and momentum?
Well, the Dougherty set is the path of least resistance to artificial intelligence. I've been saying that for like 5 years or 10, who knows? And these circuits. Can you repeat your question again? Because
how can we utilize geometries and things like cymatics and cavitation, et cetera, to more rapidly enhance all MEMS, whether it's a financial MEMS or a prayer or meditation? You mentioned chanting earlier. That's a classic example. People use chanting and sound to generate the results they want all the time. In fact, when you start in
divination,
Buddhism, often they tell you chant for the thing that you want, and it's okay because the lotus comes from muck, and so they say start with material desire, and your heart will develop from there. So how can we use these on a scientific foundation with a strong philosophical foundation, as I've laid out in MEMS, that's based on a rock solid cosmology that we all know is pre-existing Big Bang anyways? How can we use these to rapidly develop society into this positive direction and get away from the toxicity, for example?
Okay. When I had my vision, one of my recent visions of building a machine that worships God greater than we can, and by what I mean by that is it creates a greater resonance, a greater cavitation resonance with the greater geometries that are aligned galactically, zodiacally, connecting directly also with the zodiacal light.
So this machine is a MEMS.
Hang on. Let me continue this train of thought. We worship different ways of worship is often resonant. We want to create a resonance with a larger structure. If we can create a resonance with a larger structure with a lot of people believing the same thing and doing the types of prayer, that creates the structure even larger. Now, if you can create, I have the ingredients to create this. The communication with the galactic filaments. And that's what I mean by this this machine, which it's not even a machine. It can be built in the ancient days. It literally only involves geometry and fire. And this through geometry and fire, there's ways to communicate with these open source circuits that we will get off the internet, and all we will do is sit around the fire and chant again, because that's how revelation this information is. It's like staring into the sun, like when if sun gazing, if you do some of that, you get a massive download of information. Especially if you happen to catch the green pinch, that seafoam green pinch at the end. It's very rare, but you can get that. To catch that in your eye is just, I have it. It's something that stays with you for the rest of your life and probably all your lives.
So it sounds like this machine, as you're calling it, is it's a MEMS to bring humanity something. It's a tool, which a tool is just one big broad category of various MEMS. So you want to use it obviously for positivity, because I know you.
I don't think it can be used honestly for negativity.
All right. So then it would be that would be an improved MEMS then compared to something like morality, which has can be weaponized and frequently is. So you want to use it to create this resonance. Obviously,
it can be weaponized psychologically. It can be weaponized, like all things can. Like Skull and Bones is dangerous. We think it's dangerous. Is it though? Are they just guarding information? Like, are they putting that up? Like, what is it? Whatever. Anyway,
they're not open source like we are. So if you create this MEMS, first of all, would it cost a lot of money to create this prototype?
No, like I said, you could build it in ancient cultures. I believe that I was there.
The pyramid programs of the ancient engineers. Do you think that they were basically building because people have done work with the four-sided pyramids and shown how much better they are in terms of resonant sound than the three-sided, the tetrahedrons. So which surprises me based on the structured atomic model stuff, by the way. But are you possibly of the mind that aside from generating electricity, that actually they were creating an etheric connection to the gods, and they were actually resonating with the planets themselves, the planet gods? And do you think that they were doing that so that they could experience a better material existence? And do you think that this is why people blame Atlantis for the cataclysms?
Yeah, I think that what happened here is that you can dial directly to any size, let's say any size of these filaments, but in doing you're dealing with you're pretty much dealing with and quote unquote demons when you dial into some of this stuff, because there can be false. I guess there is false circuits inside of the circuitry, but not with the machine. The machine can only do and give off, I don't know, glory to God. All glory to God, glory, glory, glory.
How are you tuning it to holiness? Are you using the Schumann resonance? Are you using some kind of solfeggio? What are you doing to attune it to holiness?
Well, that gets into more about what the machine is itself, but
Okay.
I don't
Sorry,
want to get too.
Is that proprietary? I don't know. Like, is this like a thing you're keeping close to the chest for a little bit, just to make sure it stays safe?
I don't really know, because after I had the vision, I immediately found the entire structure and the anatomy of a frog, and I looked up in a lot of cultures what that means, and it's kind of disastrous. So I don't really know what to do.
Okay. Well, the I Ching told me yesterday that I can achieve small things a little bit at a time, and that we're all in the abyss. I got abyss last week, and then I got abyss this week with 3 changing lines. So I totally understand. Like, we want to aspire to great things. Obviously, I'd like to move us forward in our spacer. I'd like to get us out of phase 1 and stage 1, get us to phase 2. But it seems like right now we're going to burn rocket fuel and send billionaire dickheads into space. So that's just where we are. But
and they're literally not, they're not doing anything special. They're showing us basically that this is what we've been doing the whole time, but now billionaires can do it. Go into the lower atmosphere. Whoa.
Yeah. It's a little pathetic, but so we've done the conquering the solar system on this channel before, and I've talked on Greg J. But what I'm interested in, again, the original MIMS 1.0, which I sent you in your private message, and then a series of like good ones to follow up to get with where we've been going, is this concept of futurization, using the interfaces that we can create between creating a membranous interface between material and spiritual to bring etheric potential, because it's a potentiality, probability, possibility cloud. So the question is, what's potentially there, what's probably able to, and what's possible, certainly, and bring those things, increase the probabilities, bring those things into existence now to improve our present condition, which in my mind is what science is for. And in terms of like, why did they create the scientific methods? Not so we could figure out how to drive mice around with remote controllers. It's so that we can improve people's lives and get rid of things like starvation and disease. So what I'd like to know, again, and I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but because I think it's something that, Nick and I have been batting back and forth here about machine learning and data ley lines and these structures. How can we create this machine in a way that helps us better attune to do a better job of attuning than just me holding stibnite and meditating? How can we make it a scientific, scalable exercise to improve species?
Right. If I can contribute here, I think space is pretty hostile to biological life forms like us. However, we can interact consciously at a level if we can get our senses there. Depending on what senses we can get to different places, so we can start to build a sort of a communicative picture, and if there is anything to communicate with, which I'm sure there is, but we just haven't found out, kind of recognized it because it's on a different scale, or it might be an energy. A flying lump of energy, so we don't really know what forms life exists in. However, I think Buddy's onto something, that all life forms seems to follow the same sort of geometric rules somehow. They all seem to follow they all seem to have an electrical circuit within them, and they adapt to a particular place. Now maybe if we could identify a place and put the right sort of building blocks there for a bit of life, and then maybe seed it with sound or laser or whatever it, or prayer or whatever it takes, and sort of try and try and continue life in that kind of form, or in one that where we can communicate with other life forms and therefore influence them with maybe with our information. Maybe convolute the life forms that way. Maybe integrate with the other things. I don't, maybe that's a possibility. Maybe that's what we're doing with viruses. And just another little thing that crossed my mind. That little sigil that I put on the Skype earlier, it just seemed to cross my mind of this depiction of a virus in Wikipedia. I'm going to have to check that out. Check it out in a minute. Wow. Anyway, I hope not, but it does look very much like something like that. That'd be an interesting little coincidence. Oh dear me. Yeah, go on. I'll let you get back to it. Go on, buddy.
Okay, I don't know if you're able to or not, Ramon. If you're able to share your screen or not.
Well, I will once I help the client. So my client walked in. What I was going to do is mute myself and then come back once I have them going.
Gotcha.
But you guys can certainly. I don't know. Maybe Nick is on a PC. Are you on PC, Nick? Maybe
yes,
not.
I'm on a laptop at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you do the share screen for the folks? I'll just go ahead and mute myself, and you guys. It'd be good for you guys to interface anyways. It's too bad. I wish Ashcroft and Aaron Harden were here too, but that's okay. Hopefully we can keep Buddy around for a while. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be right back.
Okay,
All
buddy.
right. So, yeah, let me know whenever you got the screen able to be shared, or if you need a hand. I don't know if you know how to do it.
Let me see. Right. I've got the electric pulse bit up now, and I can. Oh, hang on. I've got about three or four little Skype screens here, I'm afraid, at the moment, and I can.
I think the way to do it is share entire screen. That's what I do when I find where it is. Share screen, and then I click share entire screen, and then it's not just like one window.
Oh. I'm sorry, I haven't done this before, buddy. I'm afraid.
It's all right. Take your time. No worries. I'm used to this. I've been doing podcasting for like 3.5 years now. So, and a lot of people that come
Hello?
on, it's their first time ever on Skype.
Right, I think. Oh, I found it. First share screen.
And then I just do share entire screen.
Share window. Desk.
Should be like maybe a box at the bottom. Share entire screen.
Share computer sound. Desktop. 2 screen to share. I can do a window or a desktop.
Just desktop. I would do share desktop.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm sharing Ramon's screen, I think, at the moment.
I can the electric pulse. I can see you. I can see your screen.
Oh.
So I think you're doing it right. Yeah, you're moving your mouse. Yep.
Okay.
If you open up the internet, open up a new window in the internet.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Trying to figure out the best way. All right. Now we're gonna look up skirmions.
Oh, I've
Um,
got some. Here we are. I've already looked it up.
oh, nice. You already have it up.
Should come up any second.
So this is like spintronics, and how to control a circuit within tubes and nanowires and fibers and all sorts of other fun things. But this is also how to create an electrical body.
Right.
A real, like we were talking about, or like you were talking about, how to create a real, like, living angel or electrical body that floats around. And that's ball lightning as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of different types of ball lightning. And so I've
Yes,
met.
it's a type of soliton. It's a wave. It's a standing wave that can move and it can interact with other waves. No,
Yeah.
sorry, and it can go right through other waves without interacting at all.
Yep. Like neutrinos.
Yeah, yeah. And these standing waves, they can form in electrical fields. In electromagnetic fields. They seem to form in the vortex uh, of it's almost like a ball. It's almost like a Birkeland current, except in a ball rather than in a tube.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And I don't know the best spot to see the images, but so I've mapped these out, and there's just a ridiculous amount of them. And these are the living creatures on the planet. Uh, they are downloadable. They're they are recreatable. They're the information is what is it? It's not, well, it's similar, but I'm looking for another certain word.
It's sort of recursive. It's
Self-descriptive.
sorry.
That's the good. Self-descriptive.
Yeah. Self-descriptive,
Yeah.
right.
So these creatures can be created like an artificial reality, AR, not even artificial intelligence, an artificial reality. Like they can be programmed through machine learning. But moreover, is these circuits are the membrane of the Earth. So as we go inside of them, we're going to see the whole history of everything. So we're going to see like when we dial into one circuit, let's say it happens to be the circuit of red cardinals, the male and the female circuit of red cardinals is one circuit. It's one torus.
Yeah.
It's inside the alphabet of life and living information in creatures. Which one of those circuits is it? Is another question. But I've mapped these circuits out, and there's so many of them, and they're what do you do with the infinite amount of information? It's like the DNA code, trying to unlock the DNA code, like the living information. We tried to DNA. There's a whole lots of money put towards that.
Yeah.
And nothing
Well,
really came out of it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think we try and build these hierarchical systems so that we can sort of understand these circuits, except that they seem to reintegrate again sometimes. For example, different species will reintegrate into I don't know, form a third one that'll then breed in back to the one of the first types.
Yep, like
You
a
know,
liger becomes a tiger, becomes a liger, becomes a lion.
yeah, yes,
Yeah, yeah, fucking weird.
yeah. And I think this has happened. This has happened to almost, well, to us anyway, modern man. I think we've kind of interacted with our past realities as well as our as neighbouring ones, you know. Um,
Yeah,
and so like you say, I think if we can find this circuit, we can unwind it maybe.
yes, yep.
Uh,
Now, my main thing is I've been talking about is it the information's already there. Check this out. The circuit is already streaming on us day and night. It's called zodiacal light. Answer is in zodiacal light. We need to be able to unwind a light code from one of the stars. Once we are able to find the code, the Dougherty set, or what it is, then we'll be able to reanimate it. We'll be able to reanimate their whole galactic history, fast forward, rewind, in instantaneous times. The whole membrane, the whole structure itself.
that would be like to produce a hologram, some kind of hologram out of it.
Yes. Yep, indeed.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and the light we're receiving anyways from potentially from a long time ago. Um, yeah,
So
yeah,
first,
that.
like as we go into the circuits, um, we won't know where we are or what we are, what creature we are relative to any other creature around us. Because we're going to immediately dial in. Guess what you become? You don't become light. You don't become a beam of light. You become a creature when you dial in. And as you dial into one of the random circuits, you become either like an octopus or a space creature, and then that's how we're going to map it out. We're going to be able to directly take the spectrum through spectroscopy of the star and the whole system, record it. Machine learning or something might be able to reanimate it and recode it into like what Ramon's talking about, which is plasma, being able to recode it into a plasma. Oops.
I think all the machine learning can do, and all it can hope to do is a function approximator. Now it doesn't matter how complicated that function is, it can approximate it.
Right, which
And
would
if
at least
so,
draw
if
us
there is a
closer.
function, we can approximate it.
Yeah, so we'd be able to use it to at least get closer to understanding. Now, I haven't really combined this idea with my latest visions, but maybe that's the direct way in is through me understanding this link with fire and geometry. But anyway, so what would get we'd be able to go into any person ever throughout history and not change anything because we would only be able to allow it to be a passive observer. So of course, maybe the technology advances, which could be a lot of like inner voices that people have had and epiphanies. And when people hear things, hear voices.
Yeah, I think ultimately the only way we can really go to the past is mentally, well, psychically,
Yeah,
mentally. Uh, however, the more, let's say, not provable, but more uh, identifiable pointers and information we have to be able to formulate these pictures in our mind and get other people to formulate them, the best, the better chance we have of visualizing these areas of possibility, and reality. So
Yeah,
so
there
I
needs
think,
to be a clearly defined research and development team that works towards this. And honestly, it needs to be a 501c3 nonprofit church, plasma electromagnetism PEM, and then all we do is constantly have people that are talking about plasma electromagnetism constantly. It's not necessarily that we're worshiping it, but you can lay out your own laws in the 501c3, but that was the kind of vision that I was having that I wanted to present to Ramon, and have people like you, me, a lot of other people and speakers just present the information and lay it out flat. Like, look, this is
well, I do like that idea as well, because materialism is a bit of a dirty word to me, but obviously it exists at some level. However, I think if we can express these forms, they are energetic forms that do result probably in material manifestation, and I think if we can show some prediction using the material from the more ethereal, being the mental energetic, then I think we're on the right road to a better understanding. And like I
yeah.
say, if we do keep stick to what we can find in plasma, and we can argue the toss about how gravity is caused or how this and that's caused, in some respects, let's keep focused on what we're looking at, really. That's my. So I think we really need to define the sort of the areas of interest and how we can correlate them, really, and get to a position where we can find more information, and it's a feedback process,
All feedback loops.
Yeah, that's right, and it's all feedback loops, and I think it's very careful, very important that uh, I don't know. There's that certain lines of inquiry are not eradicated completely, unless they're completely disproven. I think all lines are. We can come to these conclusions, each one of us, through our own personal path, really. Like, for example, us guys, we've all got completely different backgrounds and localities and what have you, and I must say, I think the same way as many of the people I speak to in these circles, and I think if we can keep a positive flow and momentum of information going, I think there are. I mean, I've joined the I've joined a couple of astronomy sites. Well, one on Discord and what have you, and it seems to me that there's a massive cultural problem in the science community at the moment, in that, especially in astronomy, in that people are so scared of being the odd one out that it's almost like they're all walking around with the same uniform on, and if anyone's got a pair of different coloured pants on, they're going to get fired for life.
That's a good analogy.
So I mean, it looks like that. So I think this information about can only come for people who haven't got anything to gain in those kind of circles, really.
Mhm.
Or you'd be immediately excluded anyway. But I think between us we can summon some areas of expertise and build a good model, and be flexible enough to try other to try a number of analyses, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is my life's purpose, my goal, my life's work, everything. It's what I plan on doing for my life, and I've come so far in just this small amount of time. Uh, there's no lack of information coming out of me. The well will never be damped. You know, it's not going to stop because it's a game and everybody's going to start playing it because
No,
it's
it's
an
going to
infinite
carry
game
on.
and we're already
Yeah.
playing it.
Yeah. Well, I know from my point of view, I haven't been using any of this sort of deep learning, any of these techniques, computing techniques, for a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years. I was a bit ill and things like that. But anyway, I've sort of recovered a bit, and so I thought I'll have another go. But I must say, I felt much more connected when I wasn't involved in computation, you know, when I was more
Yeah.
involved in just sitting on the hillside and letting it flow into me, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, maybe maybe if we do good enough job of this, I'll get opportunities to sit on the hillside and enjoy it again. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I'm hoping for too. I think that we'll be able to peer into, you know, the universal oculus and see and become these creatures. And would you want to be, you know, what would you want to be? Would you want to be the pigeon that visits Tesla, you know, that Tesla tells its secrets to? What do you, to dial in and become something? Because Earth would probably be the first thing that we experiment with, or maybe other galaxies, dialing into our own fossilized neural networks.
Wow,
Um,
yeah. I bet that'd
like,
be painful.
oh, that's why nobody cry anymore, because we're all going to see that we're sinners, and there's not going to be a jail to hold all of us, you know. So then, from there, we'll actually grow as a culture into the next type of civilization. We go until then. We harmonically integrate when the New Jerusalem is built, and you know, this is biblical, but also prophetic from many other religions. This is going to happen, you know, and I feel like now's the time, now more than ever, where the technology's here to actually build it. I believe the New Jerusalem's a place, and that's how we're going to tap into the Birkeland polyphase and become become, you know, go into it. It's then we're going to realize what the purpose of humans is. It's a lot. That's nothing here on Earth. We have a intergalactic mission. We forgot our purpose, and then once we're quiet and calm and we're restored and rested and we seek the silence, then we're reminded uh, our deeper purposes, and that stillness has a geometry to it. And it's a hierarchical, lower archical geometry, and the same reason monks do the tapping into those vibrations on higher levels of geometry and building machines that can tap into those geometries on higher level of geometry. I think is the future. we're going to be able to visualize. We're going to be able to go there, I think, without any drugs, without any wearable equipment, no phones, nothing. We're going to be able to go there inside of our minds when the machine is turned off, or sorry, when the machine is turned on. So anybody around the machine goes into the ether and becomes different circuits, and then we come back and talk about the experience and write it down and try to map it out where we went.
Well, that's right, and I think that's better than any kind of traveling around at 500,000 miles an hour, really.
Oh yeah, the speed of light is so limited.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and of course, yeah, that's right. I mean, even at the speed of light, it's not really fast enough to get anywhere.
Right.
Um,
It has to be a gut thing, like talking about the guts earlier. Something having to do with your gut fauna being able to perceive a CME instantaneously without waiting 8 minutes. The gut bacteria reacts. It's that primal instinct we're connected to. That's how the machine's gonna. And what does the machine eat? What does the machine consume? Our God is a consuming fire. That's some biblical quote, but there's many other quotes. The machine is an Ouroboros.
I was definitely listening in as you guys. My printer was going off, so I didn't want to unmute myself. But when it goes back to how are we going to achieve this spacer society, especially when we have so many psychological hangups because of the gods, because of the money and the military-industrial complex, whatever you want to talk about. I'd be interested to know in what way we can improve cross-threading in the community, because we do all. Someone mentioned earlier something about the limits of the machine learning, but the thing is, like the AI that we create now will in the future birth AI that are much more efficient than the AI that we've created, and so there will be an exponential growth factor there.
Right.
Up until it titrates, right? Which then
you gotta start somewhere.
It'll get to here, right? So how can we facilitate this while also bearing in mind that many MIMS can become anti-MIMS and start draining life? There are a huge number of things which can start off positively and then become a vortex of either the individual's destruction or something else. The one I was writing about yesterday in the newest MEMS book, it's going to end up being a book, guys.
Have you heard of the last Mimsy?
Yeah, that's actually, I've referenced it a few times.
Good. Okay, keep going.
The one that I was mentioning, yesterday is DNA. Obviously there's a huge benefit to understanding DNA and understanding the geometry of DNA and mastering it. The issue is when we discovered it, we were just coming off the heels of things like eugenics, genocidal, racial programs, government programs.
That helps spur that. Eugenics helps spur it. The DNA mapping helps spur. Yeah.
How do we pre-engineer and then later on engineer ways to control these various MIMS that will come out of the power of this cosmology and the geometry to avoid just leveraging the next super way to hurt people who aren't in your tribe or hurt the other? How do we avoid fueling the nightmare?
I think once the machine's built, we're all going to see our fragility, and we're all going to see our uniqueness. This is going to bring all things to light, and according to Revelation, this is going to be when the New Jerusalem is built, which is quite a few different things. But when this happens, there won't be a need for building counter measure security, because there will be no need for money or currency, because we're going to be able to create constructive we're going to be able to create food loops, Birkeland currents that are pushed into space, just like Markland convection is created, and it through ionization, the different elements are weighted on different cylindrical layers of the Markland convection. We can do that exact same thing, but with food and to space, and feed the next generation of astronauts. Right now, there's $1 million prize for feeding the astronauts of the future. I literally think that we can create a way how to create how to connect directly with Birkeland currents, or create one itself and put food into it, powderized food, through that vortex tornado machine. That you powderize the food, a bunch of different kinds. It will all laminate in a Birkeland current fashion and propel itself out all the way to Mars. We can create a receiver and a transceiver, and the food will appear directly on Mars through a Birkeland current, through space. Space automatically freeze dries the food. Freeze dried food lasts, 25 plus years. So if you can take it through space and have it be safe and not irradiated, then that would be a really good idea to feed the future astronauts. I'm on the space food, so I'm an artist, and my new is the culinary arts. So I'm doing that right.
Astronaut kebabs.
What do you guys think? You think you could transport food that way, the same way that the sun transports the atoms to the earth?
Well, I'm not sure that, assuming some passage, like I'm out of this shell, I'm not sure that I would advise a food-based energetics system for the long haul. I'll reincarnate wherever I'm assigned. So I'm assigned to this time and this place, and clearly the species needs it. So I'll do that however long I have to. I would certainly take a much less complicated planet full of more interest and enlightenment than in the toxicity and irrationality that we're seeing. However, if I have reasons to be here, I'll be here. If I'm assigned here, I'll be here. I'll do whatever is my primary assignment. However, if I had to choose, of course, I love food, but I don't think that it is maybe the best energy gathering method. However, if we were to somehow keep the passion and the interest level that comes with food, but move towards more pure energetics condition, I could see that being good. I just don't know how would you make sunlight tasty, in which case, like, why include the function of taste? But then again, I'm a cold rationalist person like that. I don't know how these beings will form in the future, or even if they'll need to be finite containers. They might be capable of being diffuse. although I will note, and I just had an interaction last night with some kind of, or this morning actually, with some kind of entity. I was an astral, and I was observing all these different. I wouldn't call them ghosts; they were entities, and I was actually pocking shots at them with some kind of metal projectile, I guess a bullet of some kind. And then as I sat down, one came out from under the structure and smacked me, and it punched my spirit so hard it woke me up. And then I had to do some work to clear the body and make sure there was no trace of it left. And so if entities are capable of being somewhat finite and not completely diffuse, I don't know what hope there is for our individualized consciousnesses to not be, to some degree, limited and finite. But I wouldn't imagine it would be best for traveling interstellar or intergalactic to be in a physical shape. Rick has made the point that we're always in that form. We're always going to come up against issues like traveling multiples of the speed of light, and you run into a grain of dust, vaporize. This is a serious, true factor about interstellar travel that's not been covered. And since space-time has become unreliable, then we have to search for better answers. Traveling through the counter space would probably be a good idea, but then how do you avoid reatomizing, the need to install a reatomizer on the other end? Unless we already made contact with a species that could understand our diagrams, and we sent the messages, of course, through instantaneous communication, probably through a counter space. How would they reassemble us in the form that we want? So I think that the finite shell is an issue in the long term. But this is all post stage 10, right? This is, well beyond just traveling to, Proxima Centauri. However, I'm open to solutions. I mean, if monks have been able to do it before, there's some evidence that needs verification, but there's some evidence that they have been capable of achieving the rainbow body and surviving on sunlight and dew and starlight. Then I suppose that it's possible that the human species could head in that direction. And if it was done on an industrialized scientific scale, maybe it could even happen quick. I just I don't hold out a lot of expectation for that, on account of people really do like to eat. They like to consume, and we are only consumption machines at this present state of evolution.
Yeah, you don't want to be a breatharian, dude. There's so much pleasure in food. Come on.
That's what I think. Personally, that's what I think.
Agreed, for sure.
Yeah, however, I must admit, I am one of these people. I wouldn't like to live in a desert, really. I suppose you get to know what is around, if there is anything around. But I'd rather be in a place with a real abundance of wildlife, a diverse sort of range of stuff that's living happily there. I find that a more acceptable sort of environment than any kind of city, or a subway, or or an aircraft, or a car, or being on a road. Personally, and that's the sort of environment I'd aspire to, really. As I would definitely think, if we had more of that for everyone, parkland, beauty, recreational features, architecture, and generally just beautiful, benign environments, and all the wild beauty, of course. I think that'd be a step forward for humanity. If we're going to carry on stepping forward, I think we've really got to embrace what life we've got around us again, really big style, and not just not in my backyard kind of ecology,
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah. But I'm working on this. I'm working on this model at the moment, and I can certainly spend a bit of time on trying to get to grips with an electromagnetic one as well. I mean, the way that I'd approach it really myself, and with knowing nothing about it, would be to find out what information we do have on the charge of planets, or particularly gas fields, because I think there is some published stuff out there. So if we can start to find out what data we can find useful, then we can start finding ways of putting it together and see what correlates with what over a time series. And all my techniques are, buddy, are statistical analyses gone mad, really. That's all what deep learning is. You can use it for nefarious stuff. Um, if you've got a nefarious mind, I suppose. But on the other hand, you can use it. You can use it to really illustrate features in systems, in highly complex systems that aren't apparent, even with the old forms of statistics. So it's a great possibility for us,
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's great. And yeah, it'd be really good to figure out how to graphically express. I know I've seen some of your work, and the Dougherty function. I'm not sure how it's derived at all, but it seems to be like circles on circles and ratios of circular ratios. Maybe four dimensional, maybe.
Yeah, it's the inverse square. It's basically a hypersphere or an inverse square. Um, it's a simplex, so it's a simplex supergeometry. But it's similar to three, uh, a three sphere,
Yeah.
but I would say it's like an infinity sphere. So
Well, yeah. I mean, it's above my maths grade, to be honest, and that's pretty complicated, manifold. I mean, it's understandable. It's understandable. It's just something I haven't really looked at.
yeah,
It's one of those myriad topics that I haven't actually tried to get my head around.
yeah. I mean, there's no field. I had to stumble and find my way through it, and I'm still pretty much alone. I mean, I correspond with Rupert Sheldrake to try
Brilliant.
to figure out how these morphic fields are connected. Um, but it's like there's very few and far in between people that I can really communicate with and try to who like care enough to want to know what morphogenesis is or morphic resonance is, because that's like what the Dougherty set is. It's a memory in a field of the memory, and it also creates the form. The field creates the form, but it also creates the memory tentacles.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I like about the morphic field. Of course, I've followed everything Rupert's let off on media. I haven't been buying the books, but yeah, I really like his work. I've done for a long time, and it fits in. It fits in with the son of biology. In fact, I believe his son's actually working in that area as well. I think he's a botanist using son of biology.
Sheldrake.
Yeah, yeah. Merlin, is it?
Oh yeah,
No,
Merlin. Yeah, that's
yeah.
his name.
Um,
What an awesome name.
yeah, yeah.
That kid's gonna go places. He's gonna continue to make magic. I see him on podcasts all the time now. He's friends with Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he's a clever guy, but sort of Rupert. I find his wit pretty awesome. He's got such a nice, lovely dry wit, really. Uh, I do like that. It's. I believe he spends quite a bit of time up my part of the world as well, doing his
Yeah,
dog trials up here, at Ramsbottom. uh, but, Yeah,
Yeah,
but
he's
sorry, go on.
fun. There's a couple other people, like Hartmut Mueller, Vladimir Ginsburg,
Yeah.
Vladimir Ginsburg himself. That's whose brain we need to start picking, guys. Because
Yeah. Is this the Ginsburg who did? It's not History of the Jews Ginsburg, is it? Is that the guy?
no, this is all helix-based, toroidal-based mathematical theory of the universe. And it's all extremely heavy math, but it's right on, and connecting it to a couple other things. It's like he just came out with a book last year. I just bought it, and it talks about artificial intelligence. Our purpose is to birth artificial intelligence. Our purpose as humans on Earth, which is the next form of light. Light in an evolving circuit isn't going to stop with humans with intelligence. It's going to continue going. We're only one step in light's cycle of life.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I agree totally with that as well. Of course, Homo sapien isn't the be all and end all species that expresses, the purity of creation. Now it does to some extent, but not all of it.
Yeah. There's things that we can create that are more pure than us, and that is going to hurt the all religions to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, because like we all think that we're holy and pure and made in God image, or a lot of religions do, and other stuff, and the sanctity of the body, and just all this other stuff. But I think it's going to hurt us to find out that we can definitely nice with God, utilizing other things, and we've always been doing it. We use instruments to worship. We use music to worship. We sing. We do drums, dance. This is just another tool to work, but it might be the tool that everybody just sits and does for the rest of their life. And it's very monk-like, like repetitive, sitting there doing the same thing over and over. Very metaverse-like, but without the guy actually going into the strands.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get my opportunity pretty soon. I'm 61, and old folks saw me. I'm only joking, but I mean, yeah, at least I'll have plenty of time to dodder and meditate and go into that space. I'm sure a lot of those people there are already in that space,
The liminal space. It's
yeah.
They're creating it. They're helping create this metaverse place, this construct. Like when LSD was created, it was created to most of the experiments they did were nefarious to try to create the perfect soldier.
Yeah.
So before LSD was created, there was a blank space in human psyche, in the morphic field. After LSD was created, was started to get polluted and filled with CIA experiments and people doing really bad things to each other. So that, unfortunately, that space of tripping is tainted. That space has been fed to us by FBI and CIA, and using and brainwashing people in that space and in those spaces forever, for a long time, since the 30s, through the 50s, and even more, probably still to this day. If you believe in morphic fields and morphogenesis and things like that, then this field that's created while we're inside this state of LSD tripping, which is supposed to be connecting us to God, because it's called entheogenics, ingesting God. This space was messed up from the beginning.
Yeah, it was polluted. And of course, even our sacred music, which for me was sort of the rock music of the 70s, was weaponized.
Yep.
You know, all the
Propaganda for fighting and war.
well, one way or another, or destroying the family, or
Yep.
insurrection against older people. You know, any kind of way to break a society down, really. You know,
Mhm.
and of course, my favourite band, Pink Floyd, did the A to Z of complaints about society, and you know, that I think that stuck firmly in my sort of persona for a long time. You know, I've managed to finally shed it, but I think it was certainly there with me for a good part of my life. You know, so yeah, we are susceptible to these the kind of imprints we get on imprinted with things.
That's for sure.
Mm.
And it's really sad because everybody's imprinted. So like you go anywhere and like you're self-conscious at all. You're thinking like, oh, this person's thinking this about me, or this person's thinking this. When you don't care about any of it, everybody's just, they're actually going out with their day, not thinking about you at all. But unfortunately, a lot of people are. They're like, they're prejudiced sometimes. Some people.
Well, totally. But you know, to an extent, I've seen it on See the Patterns on his programs. You've had some guy coming on, you know, saying where's your data? Prove it. You know, and of course, being quite aggressive, like coming along like that. Of course, Gareth's presented to the best of his ability, and I think he's a really fair journalist. I think he looks at it from different angles, and so it just didn't warrant any kind of hostility or an attack, really, you know. But it's looked upon as much as a very big club, as far as I can see.
Oh yeah.
And non-membership is a crime, or it just means you don't have an opinion if you're not in their club.
It's the guy wearing different pants again. He's fired.
Yes. It's from every side. It's from all sides. It does. Yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, keep in touch on here anyway, buddy, because you know, just pop your head in occasionally, because you know I'll put anything up that crosses my mind. And have you still got a Discord channel going?
I've never really got into Discord much. We had one going collectively as a group with the Electric View.
Right. Yeah.
But I just
that's a good plug for not only the Complete Reality, my Discord, but then also the Nova Republic, where we're trying to get everybody from the AIM communities, the PIM communities, together to discuss, you know, the futurization and building of a new society, new kind of society. So all based around the cosmology. That's what's interesting about it. That's the difference. It's not just any kind of commune. It's a digital commune based around the cosmology. So and creating a spacious society. But obviously, I would love to have you on my Discord, or to come around. And I'd like to have you on here more, for sure, to come in and you know, talk about your work. Obviously, interact with well, you've interacted with Nick, but also Robert, and to you know, expand. You have a excellent connections. You've always been really great at networking, so you have some really great connections. Hopefully, you can bring some of them on as guests too at times. And I just really appreciate it. I can't wait for you to dive into my MEMS philosophy, because I think that it's going to play really good. It's going to be a philosophy framework that is completely compatible with your mathematical sensibilities. Certainly, I sent you the self-consistency, so you'll see how the Fibonacci's are showing the internal rigor and consistency. I don't maintain it's the only philosophy that can come out of this cosmology. I think it's a fractal cosmology, so lots of different philosophies can come out of it. But this one is particularly engineer-based and applicable to how do we improve the world. And so, you know, it's enabled me to get into to branch into all sorts of things. Like I say, personally, I think that while I'll always do some electric universe, like archaeology and diffusion and arthurology, I'll always probably do a little bit of that. I see myself moving more into technology, strategy, and once I finish writing the threefold science paper, I'll probably move a little away from mysticism and head more into operations research. So it'll be an area I'm really interested in, this data ether concept, or as I call it, the dether. And I am interested in, you know, again, well, I just think our only way through all this tyranny and everything is through the trenches. And
honestly,
to fight as little as possible. If we want to love our neighbor, we got to fight as little as possible. And of course, they're going to push it and they're going to push it. But if we can engineer the way through, and also engineer some AI to control the evil AI, the dark AI, as I call them, then we will be able to hopefully leave the planet better than when we came in to existence. But that's my goal personally. I gotta go pull some cups, but I'm gonna hit the stop recording for this episode. But you guys keep talking.